questions from the floor as well, so that it's not just panelists speaking, but we can also get some questions. All right, so let me get the people in.
Основную демонстрацию.
Паузу.
Новая демонстрация.
Можемо сісти за різними ознаками.
Мы сейчас посмотрим на вещи.
Один біля одного.
Я же
Нікого не
Не пользовался? Нет. Тут просто прикол выйдешь, что...
Це буде чесно з нашої сторони.
О.
І без тобою трьох ігор.
Если контрол чуть-чуть увеличить.
Добре.
Function.
Без факту.
Вот.
Але ми не їх.
А, шифту, наверное.
У нас є Ukrainian recovery conference.
Ну да. Это не Edge. Это Edge?
Ми їхали шафелом від готелю. У нас такий появився, що є. Потім поїздом і потім автобусом. Це зайняло нам все на всього. Це зайняло нам все на всього годину 20.
как много
У нас мало бути троє, але один тут є, але він не приїхав, не заселився. Я думаю, що можемо запропонувати так само.
Сенсор экрана. Потом его как окно. Теперь нажимаем здесь в этом конкретном случае раскрыть наше окно. Смотрим.
Адміністративна одиниця. Так що, не дарма, у нас вчора я йшов 40 хвилин з вокзалу в готель. І не дарма в нас одобрили всі виноградники якраз.
Демонстрация экрана не показана.
Продолжить демонстрацию.
Дивись.
Расширим. Часть экрана. Часть экрана. А, свертована.
Скажімо так, обличчя тут просто. Я хотів сказати є, але скажімо обличчя.
Там было только что что-то показано.
Не с второй камеры.
Talking to our attracting people and in our canal context. Yeah.
Microsoft, SharePoint. Тогда, по идее, действительно можно сделать, закрыть его при помощи флага.
Я сів боку, щоб нікого не робити.
Какая-то зеленая, это что осталось?
Это остался этот.
Закрыть.
Зараз їх закриємо. Тут дивіться, з тими дверима можна вийти тільки вбити.
Базовый. Ну, этот. Все, теперь он появится.
Пам'ятай, френдзона, белінзона.
Так, хорошо. Ну, потом просто нажмем выходить состояние, правильно?
Ну, это никто не знает.
А що? Добре, френдзона, це в принципі дуже...
А если вы чуть-чуть поднимете вверх, то по идее...
А що далі?
Да, вот у них видно, что он вверх поднимется.
Ну, сейчас мы поднимем. Там, чтобы посмотреть, торчит ли кусок.
Так, а вверх.
Видно, что чуть-чуть, то есть торчит у нас.
Нет, так это...
Так вступаєш в белінзону. Ти
Нет, реально подходит.
робити
Да, вот оно должно это. Раз.
такі максимально спровоковані френдзони, а потім впадеш на зону.
Да, вот
Отлично. Все, супер. Отлично. Так мы и будем показывать, да? Что? Какой-то парень, Саша Шевченко. Хороший парень. Да. Работает у нас. Ну, вообще нормально, ребята, все работают, понимаешь? Уже всех козлов забрали. Ладно.
Balanced panels and ready because it was very bad at the center and woman just on the corners. I want to ask you why I'm the interrupting discussion not at the center. I think I cannot be at the center because it's really side event.
2 panels. So we're just going to see who else is going to join us. Maybe we should leave the door a tiny bit open so people don't feel they can't come back in. I don't know. So good lunch, early afternoon, everyone. I think we'll probably have some people joining us shortly as well. It's quite a pleasure and privilege to be moderating this panel. I'm glad I don't have to say much because as a non-Ukrainian, it always feels a bit awkward talking about Ukraine these days because it feels like whatever we say is not really appropriate. I have no idea how much time we have, to be honest, because we started so late, so we'll be a little bit more spontaneous. I think I just wanted to start by saying that we will be speaking largely about corruption because you looked at the agenda and there are corruption experts on the agenda, although the title says something a little bit more vague. And to be honest, I think it should be very explicit that we talk about corruption. We heard in the first panel, of course, corruption is not the only problem we have in Ukraine. There are quite a few others. But learning from previous reconstruction efforts of similar sizes, looking at Iraq, looking at Afghanistan, I think we have learned that if we don't put corruption center stage, it's going to be devastating, not only because we lose a lot of money that should really go to the people, but also because it has really helped in these countries to anchor corruption even more strongly in the foundations of the country, and that has a long-term catastrophic effect in a country which has for a long time been fighting its fight with corruption. So I really think we need to be understanding that people have other priorities and other worries, but if we do not put corruption at the center stage, we will see huge damage to an already extremely complicated reconstruction effort. We have very little time today, so this can only be a tiny piece in the conversation that we should have about where corruption sits and anti-corruption sits and so on. We are building, of course, on an event held on the 29th in Kyiv, for which a short paper is circulated, was on the chairs in the other room, and also on other recommendations. We heard the 40 the 40 civil society panel. My own organization, together with TI Ukraine, has also issued a paper with short recommendations, and I think we need to make sure that this is all brought together and also feeds into another event on anti-corruption tomorrow morning. So without further ado, I hope technology is working, because we do have the mayor of the city of Nikolai with us online. Alex, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Excellent.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. It's really sad you can't be here. I know you wanted to, and in fact, in the first panel, I can report that it was said very publicly that it is very, very disappointing you can't be here, but we're very grateful that you can be with us online. So can you give us a bit of an idea, perhaps, Alex, on the scale of destruction that Mykolaiv has already suffered and continues tragically to suffer? And how do you envisage sort of a best case or a realistic case scenario for reconstruction from the perspective of a city like Mykolaiv?
Yeah, hello all. Unfortunately, I can't be with you. I really prepared for that for the last 2 weeks, but on the border I found out that I have to stay in Ukraine. Anyway, this not describes in the best way the politics of decentralization in Ukraine, but anyway, I hope we will have another chance to meet each other in person. So back to our city. Today, Mykolaiv is a city on the south of Ukraine, which stays on a territory near the occupied territory of Kherson region. It's about 20 kilometers from us to occupied territory. As you see on the image, these in rows, there are occupied Kherson region and eastern territories, and this is Mykolaiv. I also want to tell you about the city. The city, before the war, our population of our city was about 500,000. The territory is 260 square kilometers. Our main business priorities were shipbuilding and port infrastructure. Our city made about 40% of all cargo export of all Ukraine. So in our city were six big factories, and medium and small business also work a lot. For now, we have different problems. One of these problems is lack of drinking water. As you see on this image, there is a Nikolai in the left corner, and there is a Kherson in the right corner. So we took drinking water, raw water, for our city from the Dnipro River, which is 73 kilometers out of the city. We pumped raw water to the city, and cleaned it to the level of drinking, and gave it to the citizens. While this war, our two pipes were ruined, destroyed, and about a month we were without drinking water. So we took water from the boreholes from under the ground and spread it to people using trucks, water tanks, and people took it from the cars, from the water tanks for months. In 1 month, we took water from Salzburg River, which is near the city, and but this water has a technical purposes, because it doesn't suit to drinking water. The level of salt and saltness are not allowed us to call it drinking water. So people still have to take water from tanks, from bottled water to drink, but at least they have water to use it in bathroom, to wash dishes, to wash their clothes, etc. So this is like one of our urgent problems now, which we face every day, and we are trying to resolve it. Help with the Danish government and our regional Ministry of Regional Development. Also, there is another big problem. You see that our city, we have two companies, heating companies, which work on the city, in the city. One of them is 40% of users of heating and energy, and another one is 60%. But right now, we don't have any ideas on how we will launch the heating season, because while these bombardments, a lot of the buildings were partially destroyed. Let's say we have around 3,300 apartment buildings, which have more than 3 floors, from 3 to 16, and for 22. So those buildings can be heated, because a lot of them don't have windows because of bombardments. Our city is under shelling from the first day of war, and only 20 days, including today, we were not bombarded. So Russians use illegal banned cluster bombs, which the main aim of them is human force, and they bombard us every day. But those bombs also make really big explosives, and windows around, let's say, in 500 meters are all out. So we don't know, we think more not about the gas, its cost and everything, but on how to launch the heating season at city at all. So, but anyway, while this war, for sure, we won't be able to renovate or reconstruct something, because it's not safe there in the city. In our city, it's not safe for people. Starting from the first day, I asked people to leave the city, because explosions are everywhere. We feel like Russians took the map of our city, put it on the grid, and shoot in each cell of the city. They shoot in sleeping neighborhoods where we don't have any military bases or even, industrial objects. So we think we need to use this time to prepare for the renovation stage. So we described here several key challenges for building our city. So we put them on two types, like soft challenges and hard challenges. About soft challenges, we need help in coordination, in management capacity and integrity, and to rethink our city, because it is really good time to rethink the mission and the strategy of our city, because we used our heritage, industrial heritage, to think how to use it in our future planning. But now, while these war times, we are able to rethink our general plan, our mission, and the best way to rebuild the city. And on the European levels, as let's say, like all the world does in direction of development of their cities. As about hard stuff, we have problems with safety, infrastructure, energy and environment, and investments in workspace. Because for sure, Ukraine and the city of Nikolai will need help of European countries, let's say of all the world. But in future, we don't need to be as some person who stays in a hospital and needs fresh blood every time. We need to be standalone. We need to be not dependent on resources. The financial resources, any type of resources, and we need to grow our city by ourselves without any help. So on this particular challenges, we decided to find different solutions, which we described in this image. For sure, we will need coordination units because it's hard for us in our paradigm to develop appropriate strategy. For sure, we need people who are far forward from us and who already use their knowledge to improve their territories. And for sure, those people, it's easy for us to bring those people here in Ukraine and put them in our conditions, than to grow and to teach our people, because they already in our Ukrainian and Mykolaiv paradigm. So for sure we'll need this help, and for sure in this we will need citizens engagement, IT solutions that already in use in European Union. For sure, we'll need Danish experience because, as you know, we have already cooperation in this direction, and the President of Ukraine asked to help us in future restoration. For sure, all those things should be based on EU standards on resource spending. Money and all the types of resources. I usually say that we don't need money. We need projects, because it's very important for us that all the procedures, like procurement procedures, quality standards, should be done in by European standards. Green agenda, for sure, everything that we need to change and to build and to improve should be done on green agenda, on the development of green standards, city security standards, and business-oriented on the education. The things we can do now. For sure, we will need human force, and for sure, we will ask European and Western business to come in our city. So we need to prepare a workforce for them, and on the new levels, on the new basics of standards of work. So I'm finishing. We put all those solutions in connected to different challenges. So you can see that for sure we will need citizens engagement, because we need people control, and for sure we need to ask people what they want to see in the city, and how they want to act in the city and take part in city restoration. For sure, we need more experts, and we need to work with them now in let's say, in direction of renovating water and heating. We are already in need of them now, and for sure we need this type of help. As for integrity, I don't believe in people. Someday I was met with the students in one of our universities, and they asked me, the title of the meeting was how to get success in IT sphere and not to be a mayor, because in my previous life I was an IT entrepreneur. And I said the hardest thing in everyday mayor's work is fight with temptation, because people have problems with temptation, and on all the levels, and the best way to reduce temptation is put IT solutions where computer makes decision but not people, and standards, rules, and laws. New city strategy, also we need experts. As I usually like to use phrase of Steve Jobs, that he said that bad managers hire professionals and tell them what to do. I don't know if we need to tell anything to professionals, but we need their for sure them to renovate our city. Safety, also a couple of these solutions. Infrastructure, for sure, we will need. We talk about a lot about corruption, and the corruption is can be happened on all the levels, on the level of development, building, quality checking, and payment, for sure. So all that stuff need to be standardized and put on European standards levels. Energy and environment, for sure, we started to work on this direction before the war, and we need to move on and rebuild everything based on those rules. And for sure, we need new business-oriented education, especially for workforce. We have a lot of people with master degrees and everything, but we don't have many people who are ready to renovate and rebuild our country. I think that's all that I wanted to say. Ready to answer your question. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alex. I really, really appreciate it. And I think, this presentation, in full transparency, I gave you more time than all the other panelists will have, but I think that's my moderator's privilege and hopefully acceptable. But I think it was an interesting presentation because integrity was part of your presentation, and you showed how it interacts with all the other issues. And I think it also shows that the way you're thinking through the coordination, the management, integrity, and in particular highlighting the strategic thinking, not just rebuilding what's been there before, but thinking what you want to do. I mean, that is also a safeguard against misuse and biased reconstruction efforts. So I think, there's a lot in that that we can pick up hopefully later again. But in order to bring our panel in, I'd like to turn to Alexander Novikov, who's the head of the National Anti-Corruption Prevention Agency. And Alexander, if I can ask you, we know we've got a few really good institutions in Ukraine now dedicated to fighting corruption, including yours. I don't think they've ever been faced with a scale of challenge that's coming their way. How do you see the anti-corruption or central government-led anti-corruption infrastructure? Is it a coalition of these institutions? Is it a new institution? How do you see them interacting with civil society? Just a few thoughts on that, and I'll be strict with 4 minutes or something like that.
I have to answer the question, or to have some words about in general.
A connection of the two would be good.
Okay. Ukraine has a very strong civil society, and it my opinion that the civil society organization did in sphere of anti-corruption more than government institutions. But for today, we already have all anti-corruption infrastructure, and we have agency for prevention. We have NABU, SAPU, High Anti-Corruption Code, ARMA, and but I'm only one who are in on the position of the head of this institution. So it's very hard to have a coalition of anti-corruption institutions when you didn't have don't have partners ahead of institutions. So I hope that the selection commission and we work with selection commission of the to the position of SAPO on the issue of appointment of the head of this institution. We did a special verification for the declarations of the candidates on this position, and we made a lot of clarifications to the head of this commission and to this commission that there is no any points that can stop the appointment of the head of the SAP. And in Ukraine, we have all infrastructure that we need, and we, as an agency, I think work as a team with our civil society organizations. Taras, Andrei, Tatiana, and Katya is a lot of heads of the civil society organization is even in the civic council of NACP. We believe in coalitions, and we in every our project, the project of our agency, we have partners from civil society organizations. It's our approach not to have a project without the involvement of civil society. We close cooperate in our IT tools with civil society. So we created a portal of hidden interests that have no analogs all over the world and can identify the conflict of interest on the through the IT solutions with the help of anti-corruption headquarters civil society organization. We built the newest register for political party reports with the involvement of Chesna, another civil society organization. And we are absolutely confident that we will not have transparency in the process of rebuilding or modernization of Ukraine without the involvement of civil society. Why? Because civil society is the answer for the issue of transparency. They can help us to analyze the corruption risks in all these spheres, and we already have a close cooperation with Lviv Regulatory Hub, and we did a lot of analysis of corruption risk. We did the same with the Institute of Legislative Ideas, and thirdly, the public involvement will help make the process truly inclusive, because we understand that we will have a lot of injured soldiers after the war, so they have not been confided in their houses and because of corruption, and so we have to control the process of rebuilding in this sphere too. And I want to emphasize another last thing, that for years Russia have tried to portray Ukraine as the most corrupted state, but it controlled even foreign media through editorial offices in Moscow. Russia built its own media and political empire in Ukraine to make us all believe in Russian propaganda. And most important thing is our chance to prove to our own citizens that the government machine works for them and only for them. That's why NACP is absolutely open for the cooperation with civil society, and we want to make this approach as a general approach for every government institution. and it is a part of anti-corruption strategy that was voted 2 weeks ago in our parliament.
Yeah.
And we want to be the advocate for every civil society organizations in our government.
Thank you so much also for being really succinct. I appreciate that. Andrei, Alexander says rightly they have institutions. Their problem is that they don't have heads apart from yours. If you look at, and we did that a little bit together in the last few weeks, if you look at the reform process that was still going on before the war, making the anti-corruption infrastructure even more robust, what is the most important we need to tackle to make sure that the current infrastructure is really ready to fight what is going to be an onslaught of people trying to get a piece of the pie?
Yeah, thank you for this question. Actually, I see that there is kind of three main momentums about the anti-corruption infrastructure and about this very big pie, which I guess too many people expecting. Civil society expecting that there will be no stolen money and everything will be much better. I'm sure that lots of people from the anti-corruption institutions, prosecutors, detectives, they hope that they will not have lots of work dealing with that. But my simple answer, Alexander already mentioned that he's the only one out of five possible leaders of the anti-corruption institutions in Ukraine who has a permanent position, at least for the next 2 years, if I'm not mistaken. We do not have heads of the 4 out of 5 anti-corruption institutions. And I think that anti-corruption institutions, this infrastructure, which was built, by the way, not only by Ukrainians, but with a strong support with our international partners, must have permanent leadership as soon as possible, must have enough of instruments, must have enough of capacity, because there were lots of political pressure while lots of us were working on developing these institutions. And I think they will still have lots of work, because yes, after the 24th of February, many things changed in Ukraine. Yes, there is lots of joint efforts between civil society, government, ordinary people to fight back the Russian invasion, but the corruption risks are in place. They're still there, because we just posed that problem. But while we, with the small steps, going to the victory and moving on towards the reconstruction and the start of the reconstruction, we need to remember that without strong anti-corruption institutions, I think that we might lose a chance to actually not rebuild, but to rise Ukraine again. Another thing is, which is heavily politicized, is actually the arrested, freezed, kind of confiscated Russian assets. Let's be honest that in order for those assets were brought to Ukraine, not to Russians, to Ukraine, it will take ages. Yes, there is nothing impossible for Ukrainians. We proved it many times. But in order for that process to happen, we need to change the fundamentals of international law. So we should not buy from the European politicians who are saying that, no, guys, we will give you the Russian assets and this will be a source for financing the reconstruction. Because they knew that it will take at least 10 years that's my very optimistic forecast, to bring them to Ukraine, because it's never happened before. But there is another source, by the way, of finances, which we a little bit, I think it's a part of problem of the investigations in Ukraine. It's money of the kleptocrats, our own kleptocrats. Those money which were stolen from the country before the Revolution of Dignity. And this money are also in Switzerland and in many, many other countries. I think we can speed up and work with already existing tools in order to repatriate this money back to Ukraine. And this will be kind of a first installment for the country to do the reconstruction. And the third thing is transparency. Yes, it sounds like transparency, accountability. Everybody talks about transparency and accountability. But again, we have very good example with Prozoro sale, where everybody can see everything. Everybody complaining, but when now, for example, Prozoro is not fully operating, now the business starting complaining that why we don't have Prozoro. It is such a great tool. when on the 23rd of February they were saying, no, it's so horrible, it's so complicated, why we should give all this information. But when there is no publicity, everybody are unhappy. So some kind of online system which will allow literally everybody, not only Ukrainians, but our international partners, to see all the projects going through this nightmare of bureaucracy till the very end of the public procurement tender, and will allow us to see how it goes through from the very low level of the amalgamated community to the implementation. This will definitely give a good tool not only to civil society to monitor, but also to the international community to look after the reconstruction, because we all understand that reconstruction will not happen if in 2, 3, 4 years. It will take like at least 10 years. I think somebody from the European Union mentioned this. At least 10 years. So this very simple. Let's do the anti-corruption institutions do their work. Let's bring back stolen assets from Yanukovych, if somebody still remember the surname. And let's think about transparency and accountability through the digitalization and online systems. This will definitely make strong the whole process of controlling the money which go into the reconstruction.
Thank you, Andrea, and I'm particularly pleased you're bringing the second point in on the asset recovery, because we got to be careful that we don't expect all this money to come back and rebuild the country. It's not going to happen tomorrow. And likewise, we got to be careful that we continue to respect the rule of law. If we talk about a kleptocrat, Russian kleptocrat assets, because if we start to bend the rule of law in order to fight corruption, we got a problem, right? That doesn't work. Olena, the government will be under a lot of pressure to rebuild the country quickly. And anti-corruption measures always sound like they are slowing things down. They sometimes are, right? I'd be interested in two things. One, how much do you believe, how do you read the signs on the walls in terms of how central the government really sees anti-corruption in the reconstruction effort? And then secondly, maybe reacting also to what Alexander said, who said we absolutely want to involve civil society. That's not a criticism. That's a great sentence, of course. But in reality, how does that work? You need to be equal partners, but you also need to be at arm's length. Otherwise, you can't fulfill your dual role. So in your experience, how can that really be operationalized and not become an empty sentence?
Thank you very much. So first of all, I would like to start, during the last month and a half, we've been very actively advocating for EU candidate status, and we had a lot of conversations with the stakeholders from the so-called skeptical countries. So they mostly were talking about the corruption and rule of law related issues, and how can we make sure that Ukraine is sincerely doing the reforms. They also said a very interesting thing, that there is a big appetite of the international partners to support Ukrainian recovery. But the first corruption scandal may ruin the trust. And obviously, we are sure that we have a great infrastructure which still needs to be fixed with some issues like the selection of the or appointment of the management. But the very appearance, the very existence of the scandal would be already a very huge blow. Even without waiting for this case to be investigated or prosecuted. So it will not be an exaggeration to say that this is our national security interest to put all the anti-corruption safeguards before, to make sure that everything is literally crystal clear from the very beginning. And with regards to that, we see a very big potential of having the accession process and the links to the of the recovery money to a very clear reform conditionalities. Both basically should go in parallel, both should amplify each other, and both should be linked to the reforms. This will be the most effective safeguard to make sure that the reforms continue, as well as this will be a very good guarantee for the foreign investors to enter Ukrainian markets, because they know that strategically, with 2 steps forward and 1 step back, Ukrainian authorities will do all the necessary reforms. And what we hear from the investors is that they continue complaining on the lack of the rule of law. So the judicial reform, anti-corruption reform remain of the big priorities. And here, yes, a very big test is underway. I absolutely agree with how my colleagues Alexander and Andriy said this. I just want to mention that it is not only about the non-appointment of the finalist of the SAPO competition, but there is also a very big risk that the entire competition might be cancelled on the 12th of July by the decision of the very dubious appeal court, Kiev Administration Appeal Court. Which will consider the legality of the rules of procedure of the competition on the 12th of July. And the first instance court has already nullified this competition. So for us, it is very important that the European Union sticks toughly on the conditionality which they added on the to this EU candidate list, which says that the finalist of the competition should be appointed as soon as possible. Not the restarting of the competition, not the new law, but appointment of the finalist. And this, from my perspective, is a very big test which both the European Union and the EU member states will be judging the sincerity of the Ukrainian authorities to do the reforms. So we'll see very soon. Answering your question of what is the sign on the wall, we will see very soon. I hope that the sign will be that Ukrainian authorities are ready to implement their pledges. Another important safeguard from our perspective is that this money should not go to the budget, because this will be like hundreds of billions of dollars. Ukrainian public administration is not capable of processing these funds. They do not have capacities for that. Also, the incentive for the abuse is too big, because money which go directed to the state budget, they might be the subject to the checks not of our anti-corruption infrastructure, but of the SBU, of the State Bureau of Investigations. These reforms will be done. They will be definitely conducted in the process of the accession. EU accession process, but it will take years. And this will also be, parallel processes. So to make sure that these non-reformed institutions do not abuse their powers, and we are not getting back to what I said at the very beginning, that we simply lose this chance and get tainted by this corruption scandals, we need to get the safeguards here. So optimal mechanism from our perspective would be that Ukrainian authorities definitely define the priorities, the objectives, which are objects that need to be recovered, repaired, rebuilt, reconstructed, but they have minimum influence on choosing the contractors. As one of the options, this might be the separate fund with let's say, supervisory board, where there will be representatives of the Ukrainian government, of the foreign donors, of the civil society, who jointly oversee this whole procurement process, and they manage to stop those procurements that have the corruption scandals. But that's basically practicalities. We need to agree on the kind of the principles, and that's, from our perspective, is important. Because again, this bitter tragedy which we are right now going through, it creates and opens up unprecedented opportunities for us. If we do not seize this momentum, we will simply lose it for the decades.
And it will feel like a part of the war is still lost if we don't use that opportunity in
Yes.
many ways, I think. And it would be extremely tragic for the people who have lost their life in this. There's so much I want to say in response to what you just said, but I hopefully we will have time to come back to some of the points you made. But I want to turn to Taras now. And also, in a way, reconnecting to the mayor of Mykolaiv, of course, because it will be a nationwide effort to reconstruct, rebuild Ukraine. But there will be various levels at which this will happen, at the local level, central level, and we've got a mix of everything at this event today. How do you think we can create this interaction? How should this interplay from local to central? And I think you're based in Lviv, so you probably have a bit of experience in trying to create and connect with central authorities, but also remain true to your local needs and so on. So can you maybe talk a bit about that?
Yeah. Thank you for the question, and thank you for the invitation. I understand I have not a lot of time. Yes.
It's fine. 5 minutes.
we are cooperating with authorities in both levels, the local levels and the center levels in 16 regions of Ukraine. And we deeply understand the problems and the future problems that will take part, and sometimes we help them to cooperate with each other, yes, in these levels. Before the 24th and after the 24th, it's like a little bit another cooperation. It will be, yeah, as it was. But I think that this interaction is very important in reaching our set goals. As like a civil society, NGOs, that most of which were found after the Revolution of Dignity, yes, and this NGOs and competent state institutions, including the large numbers of new ones created, play this critical role in this communication, in this interaction. And I think the not only development of the country, but now we can see that it's a huge role in the struggle for this for independence, yes, for the Russian occupied Russian aggression. And for example, I get a short example. My organization, Lviv Regulatory Hub, from the first days we are cooperating with our regional state administrations, that now is Lviv Regional Military Administration, and we get together our opportunities and get some mechanism to possible coordination and cooperation, and together we with supporting of the donors, especially UCI, we can feed a lot of problems in our region, yes, as that took part in these first weeks. And it is very important to cooperate with these institutions from the civil society, institutions from the local and central level. And we have some problems when we really help our local authority to communicate with the central authority because of all this mess, or all the people that took part in this process. And I think it's a main role of civil society in this cooperation, in this coordinating. And we see the good example, the hundreds of examples when NGOs after the 24th of February look like and do they do. And I think the first 2-3 months it was a very great cooperation of all Ukrainian powers, like NGOs, like all level authorities. And to conclude, I think like that the civil society role in the recovery and in the reconstruction is very important. And this model that we have now, I believe that we must do our best to moving forward in this model.
Thank you very much, Taras. And I'm afraid I just got the intelligence. I could have pretended I didn't read it, actually. Maybe I should have done that. We were kind of told that we don't actually have time to do even questions from the floor, nor another round on the panel, which is a bit regretful. But I do give me 2 more minutes, because I do want to bring the mayor of Mykolaiv in one more time, because he's the only person that we can't talk to in the corridors here. So follow up and further discussion can be in the corridors. But Alex, did you want to maybe, just having heard what has been discussed there, do you have a reaction? Is the scenarios that were painted here real? And how at the local level do you think you will be able to engage with civil society? You talked about citizen engagement, but will they even have time to engage? They will have to rebuild their houses, I imagine, right?
For sure, I would agree with the phrase that it's really hard to operate with resources that we expect to get in future for renovation, and we need to prepare those procedures and people who will act, who will work with those type of resources before the restoration of our country. And as I told you before, that like in my previous life, I was an IT entrepreneur, so there was a system thinking like course, and everything around us is a system. System can have another subsystems, and systems have elements, connections, rules, and paradigm. So the best thing that we have now while this war is that we are ready to change our paradigm, the paradigm of our country and our local authorities and our, let's say, the civil society. And for sure we need rules and we need instruments, because elements, I mean people, governors, mayors, presidents, are only elements. And the system thinking says that the smallest impact on the system gives you only the change of elements. So you can change element, but this will be the smallest impact. You need to change rules, you need to change paradigm, you need to change connections. So for sure, we have to talk about it now. We need to use civil society institutions. Today we have in Nikolai, we have public organization which work with the city council, and two more public organizations have not completed the formation process before the war. We also cooperate with the non-governmental organization Institute of Legislative Ideas, and they do anti-corruption expertise analysis of draft decisions of our municipality. So for sure we need to go in that direction, because rules, systems, and the less about elements, but for sure we need elements too.
Thank you. I think some of the points you made, it's interesting to look at things from an IT perspective, the connections into changes in paradigms, and how you can, in an IT system, you can build these connections. In real life, it's sometimes a bit more complicated, but I think using IT for that is really good. Alex, you are our last speaker, and we have a concluding remark as well, but I just wanted to say it's been a pleasure to meet you, and please stay safe. And we hope to be in contact, and that things will turn out well for your city as best as they can. So with that, I would like to ask Alan Pach Christensen to come up here, and perhaps one of us can lend you, do you have a handheld microphone? Excellent. Alan is the head of the EU Anti-Corruption Initiative, which of course is the initiative that's brought us together. And aware of the fact that we all need 15 minutes to walk to the main center, you still have 5 minutes. Of course, it'd be great to hear from you, Alan, please.
Thank you so much. I will be very brief. On behalf of the UACI, we are co-organizing this event today. I just want to thank you, the moderator, Greta. Thanks for taking us through this panel. I'd like to thank the panelists, and I would especially like to thank the mayor of Nikolai, Alexandra, for being with us online. You should have been here. It's really regrettable, but great you could be with us online, and thanks for your excellent presentation. We have met a few times, but always online. And again, I would like to commend you for your leadership and your courage in these so difficult times for your city. It's very admirable. I would also like to thank the civil society organizations. Good to see so many of you in Lugano, perhaps not in this room, but then taken together. I think this morning was your morning. You were the first to transform your organizations to help fellow countrymen when the war broke out on the 24th. We were very impressed by that at the UACI. We were there to support you, but you were those doing the work, helping people in need. And I think now today, I know you also, it's also many of your colleagues who are in the front line. Unfortunately, there are also some that are losing their lives. We had the example of Roman Vatuchny not long time ago, but with him many other colleagues that are no longer with us. I think your engagement and dedication during these very difficult times for your country once again demonstrate the strength of civil society of Ukraine and gives hope for the future of your country. And I really appreciate the discussion we had here, but also in the other room in the morning. I think everyone agrees that you will be the driving force behind the new Ukraine, and without you, the reconstruction will not be successful. So with these words, I wish you all a fruitful conference, and Slava Ukraini. Thanks a lot.
Slava Ukraine. Thank you very much. I think that concludes it very nicely, and the sun has come out as well, so lucky to be back in dry weather and go over to the conference, which I truly hope will pick up some of the topics we've talked about today. And then tomorrow morning there's another session at 10 o'clock where we can hopefully come back to some of the points we were barely able to touch. And I'm sorry for the short period that we had, but it's a starting point and hopefully a long conversation to go. So thank you very much for joining us, and see you all around.
Better where we are going now. I mean, we are going to the main.
You've got a badge for the main. Oh,
no,
sorry.
I don't.
Will you have one? Have you?
Yes,
You're
I'm
registered.
but
Okay.
I haven't picked
Okay.
it up yet.
It's a 10-minute walk. You've got reasonable shoes, so that's good. Oh, sorry.
Yes, I'm well prepared.
Yeah, me too. See,
Walking.
I've learned in life. Can you get that? Need to get uncabled. My hair is a problem.
Yeah, it's always problem.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry.